Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one! Another one! Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30. He's going to go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Worked out by Burke. Bounces into Cody. Puts it up. Scores!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
And welcome in, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, mobile in Indianapolis. Spending a little morning here. Chris Denari from the Pacers joining us. Chris, I'm in Indy today. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at Circle City right now.
Yeah, you had a big night, right? A little Guns N' Roses last night.
A little fun, had a little enjoyment for once. First concert in what? I don't know. It's been 2.5 years since I've been to a concert, I think. It's been a minute, but it was fun to get back out there, man. Plenty of people. It didn't keep people away, I can tell you that. But it was amazing, the people. I was like looking at the audience, the range. Yeah. I saw somebody, I remember asking somebody, I said, how do you think that guy is? Because he looked like he was 80. Yeah. And I'm like, man, they weren't even around when that guy. So it was just fun, but it's great, just great getting out.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking forward to it. In a couple of weeks, we're going to a country concert. Brett Eldridge, who my wife and I really like. And so we're really looking forward to that because there have been years, Jim, in the summer, once the Pacer season has been over, I bet you we've gone to anywhere between 5 and 8 concerts. It's just like going to a live sporting event. There's something about live music, right? And so just having that ability to get back to that, we're crawling back, but I'm sure you guys had a lot of fun. I had some friends that were at the show last night, so hats off to you, and you're in your mobile Indianapolis studio.
That's right. I can almost see. I was trying to look and see if I could see Banker's Life, but I probably could if I stood up, maybe. But yeah. I'm not sure if I can. But how are things going with you?
Good. We're inside 3 weeks from Media Day now. Media Day will be Monday, September 27th. The first Pacers practice will be on the 28th. A couple of things that have happened this week. The Pacers released that. TJ Warren's rehab from the stress fracture, probably not going as well as they would like, but they're taking it day by day. He made a comment yesterday that said he is diligent in his rehab and hopes to be back soon. So I think they were just probably, trying to quash some things. So let's say that day one of training camp, he's not ready to go. They just want to let people know that rehab is ongoing. Not quite where he maybe wants to be, but you're still a good month away from the start of the regular season. But I think the other thing, Jim, is the bulk of the team. In fact, I think all of them are going to be in next week. They have committed to coming in 2 weeks before training camp. That's led by Malcolm Brogdon and the leadership of the team, knowing that they have a new coaching staff. I think these guys, they weren't real happy with how last year ended, not making the playoffs. So, people will say, well, is that a big deal? Well, sure it is, because you don't have to be back until late September. And here these guys have decided that they're going to all come back 2 weeks early to do some things prior to training camp starting.
That's pretty difficult to do, to get that many professionals to come in early. I mean, a lot of times you'll get some guys, but to get them as a team, that usually doesn't happen.
No, and when you think about it, I mean, it's a long season. I mean, you start in September and you hope you're playing.
And that's coming off of 2 back-to-back seasons where you had that nonstop kind of a deal.
Right. So you're hoping that your season goes into late May, June. I mean, I don't, we've talked, this isn't necessarily a championship built team, but it's a team that would hope to get to the playoffs and make some type of run. So you're talking about, 8 months. So having 2 extra weeks off and being wherever you want to be usually is important, but I think it's an important enough season for a lot of these guys that they want to be back, build that camaraderie, build that teamwork. They can't really do official. It's not an official practice, but they can use the Ascension St. Vincent Center, play a lot of pickup, do a lot of workouts. Coaches can be there. They can watch. They can't teach. They can't coach. But I think it'll be really important for these guys to be able to do that.
Absolutely. What do they Pacers, besides having these veterans all coming in like that? That's a great start to a season. That best start you could probably ask for. But other than that, what do the Pacers need to do this season to get off to that good starter? Besides getting off to a good start, this is something they need to do. But what do they need to do? They've added the pieces. They are what they are right now. I don't think anything's going to change.
I think the roster is what it is. They've got 15 players under full contract, two-way players, and then they have some training camp guys that will come in that have they're trying to bump somebody off the roster or play in the G League with Fort Wayne Mad Ants. I'm just looking at the schedule, Jim. It's a difficult schedule to start. Your first 2 games are on the road. Then you have a weekend at home where you have Miami and Milwaukee. And then you're back out on the road at Toronto and Brooklyn. You've got a 4-game road trip in November: Portland, Sacramento, Denver, Utah. I mean, those are three of the 4 are really good Western Conference teams. It's a little bit of a daunting schedule early. I just think that the thing that this group has to be committed to, and I know the coaching staff will be, they have to be better defensively than they were last year. And this is basically the same roster as we had last year. Basically the same roster with a few minor tweaks from 2 years ago. 2 years ago, this was one of the top 5 or 6 defensive teams in the NBA. They were 45-28. Last year, they were probably about 15th, 16th, and they had a below 500 record. Rick Carlisle has always stressed defense, but I think he's a very creative offensive coach. But I think they've got to get back to focusing on defense and building that as the framework and then moving on from there.
Yeah, too many people, even at the professional level, ignore the fact that I don't care what sport it is, defense is first. Yeah. You have to defend. I mean, look at the IU basketball team. What they showed in the Bahamas. You didn't expect a lot of offensive, but they were together defensively, which was amazing to me that they could come together. So, I agree with you 1,000%, man. It's all about the defense, whether you're talking about the Colts or the Pacers. You got to shut that down. But the fact that they're coming in 2 weeks early, they're giving up time to do this. So they're working on being exactly what they need to do. I think that's very impressive by a pro sports team. You just don't see that.
Yeah, and I just think that's important for these guys to do that, and that is, that's those guys making the decision. That's not leadership saying, "Hey, we'd like you guys to come in early," because that clearly doesn't have to happen. That's not a part of the collectively bargained system. This is a group of players who some of them got together in LA during the summer. A number of them were in Las Vegas during summer league. But this is a group getting together saying, we have to be better. We want to be better. This is a way for us to be better. Now, there are no guarantees. We know that, right? I mean, but I think this is a good first step to get ready for a new season.
Wyatt's excited to hear the new PA guy at Bankers Life. So obviously there's been a change there. So he's got him excited.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I'm interested to see what they do. Sean Sullivan, who works at Ball State, has been the PA voice of the Indiana Fever, and he filled in last year. Now, I don't know. I don't even know where they are in it, Jim. I mean, I know that they are looking for a new person. So we'll just have to wait and see. I'm just glad they're not looking for a new TV person, right?
That's not going to happen. But they can throw my name in the ring, baby. You need a PA guy. I'll jump right on and do that. That would be worth coming up to Indianapolis for. Tim's mentions, and I haven't seen this to confirm this, but Juwan Morgan joining the Celtics. Wow.
Yeah, I saw that he signed, probably a training camp contract, but has a chance to make the team. Brad Stevens has really remade the roster a little bit. around Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Made some changes in the offseason. But, yeah, I saw that Juwan Morgan, who most recently had played in Utah with the Jazz, has signed a contract in Boston. So, he's had a nice career. I mean, he's a guy that was a little bit under the radar from an NBA standpoint, but I thought over the last couple of years played pretty well when he had the opportunity in Utah.
Absolutely. He is a guy that I'm like, is there any more of a yeoman player, a blue collar? Juwan Morgan is not a guy that was expected, that I expected, that most people expected to be playing in the NBA, and he's been doing it for a couple of seasons now. So, and to get that second opportunity, that shows that he's not just a flash. So that's very impressive. You can tell he's working very, very hard to do that.
Yeah, I think what's going to be interesting is to watch some of the guys at different locations. It happens every year, and one of those is Cody Zeller. He's out in Portland now after starting his career in Charlotte. It's always interesting to see how guys adapt in that first move that they make, whether it's through free agency or through a trade. Carson Edwards, who played at Purdue, has been in Boston. It's still, I believe, a rumored trade or a source trade that he's on his way to Memphis, and that might be a good opportunity for him to play as well.
Absolutely. What else is coming up next? I know you've got a few weeks out still for all this stuff that started. What do you, in the meantime, how do you prepare for your season?
Well, I've been working what I try
in the garden.
What?
In the garden.
Hey, if I sent you some pictures, you'll see what I've done the last 2 days. My hands are raw. I had a shovel with my hand and did a huge flower bed out in the front of the house. So, but no, I've started to work on score sheets. Going through all the rosters and the trades and the free agency and all the movement of players. I've still got some time, but what I try to do is do a couple of teams a day. If you can knock that out, it takes you about 2 weeks to get through it. And I start to read articles and just get up to date with how things are. It's not been officially announced, but we'll probably do the final 2 preseason games. That'll be at Bankers Life Fieldhouse. So that'll be in mid-October, about a week prior to the start of the regular season. We'll do 81 of the 82 games. The Pacers only have one national game this year, and that's a game in December in Miami. That's great for us at Bally Sports Indiana to do all but one of the games. So, I just try to look at it here in the next 3 weeks. My wife and I will head to the Blue Ridge Mountains for a week where we have a cabin where we'll rent and just, be away for a week and then come back. And really, Jim, once the end of September, early October hits, it's pretty much 8 months of, go with games all the time. But, that's why you get in the business. I love basketball. I love being around the game and being able to do what I do on a regular basis. It's hard for me to believe this will be my 16th year as the TV voice of the Pacers. So, I've been blessed and had a great opportunity and can't wait to get started.
Are you guys going to be going on the road this year?
It's a great question. No decisions have been made yet. A lot of the baseball teams, the TV guys are still doing things remotely. I'm going to guess that we will start remote. I really believe that. But I'm of the opinion, Jim, that, clearly you want to be on the road with the team and you want to be in the building. But there are so many protocols and believe me, I get to do what I get to do. And the last year plus, if you count the games in the bubble and then all of last year, we did road games in the studio. It became like the new normal. And it's not that big a deal, right? I mean, I don't really think the fans care where you are. They just want you to do your job. And so I'm just going to do my job however we have to do it. And we'll just have to wait and see.
Appreciate you, man. Looking forward to it as always. I hope you have a great week, and we look forward to talking to you next week.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Have a good one.
The great Chris Denari from the Pacers, the voice of the Pacers, joining us here. Brought to you by the fine folks from the Psalms family of restaurants in the Indianapolis area and down at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Clubhouse. Stay tuned. We've got plenty more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat. We're back with it right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans, Yay! You have no idea. I was running around trying to find my stinking charger for my laptop.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was like, is he going to be on his phone? Is he?
I had to go 2 trips down to the car from the 12th floor.
So Matt Taylor should be joining us next. Haven't heard from him, but sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And then Dustin, he said he will join if he's able, which is in 10 minutes. So I don't know how long. He said he doesn't know how long it'll be. So,
and then Rick is on when?
10:20. So if you want to find somebody else for 9:40 or 10 o'clock, feel free. How long did Guns N' Roses play last night?
Yeah, that's a good question. I kept asking somebody what time they actually started because I didn't remember. And I mean, I didn't remember what time because I was running around. I didn't remember what time they actually started, but I don't know. Good 2 hours. It was a good 2 hours.
Are they still playing with the original lineup like they had did a tour for a couple years ago?
Minus Izzy Stradlin.
Sweet. Okay, yeah, Matt Taylor confirmed, so he should be on here shortly. Here he is. Morning, Matt.
What's up, guys?
How are you, brother?
What's shaking?
Oh, just recovering from Guns N' Roses last night, man.
Oh, nice. Did you go?
I did.
How was it?
It was cool being in Lucas Oil for a concert. That was the first concert I'd seen in there.
Yeah, typically it's not the best concert venue because of
Yes. But it was just great to be at a concert.
How was the show? Was it good?
I thought so, yeah. It wasn't as good as the last 2 times I saw them, but
I saw them like in 2011, and they didn't take the stage until like 1:30 a.m. I said,
you're kidding me.
Oh my gosh.
I think they're over that stuff now.
Yeah. Well, you have to be given the crowd, you know?
Yep.
All right, here we go.
List of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink. This segment is brought to you by Sam's Family of Restaurants. Fresh, local, family. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat here, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios mobile unit in Indianapolis. Appropriately, Matt Taylor joins us, voice of the Colts. How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. What's up?
Hanging out, recovering from Guns N' Roses last night, looking out at a beautiful Indianapolis skyline. Looking at right now, I'm looking at the City Circle area, whatever you call that, the circle, the monument.
Are you in
Sailors.
the share?
Yes, sir.
See, I know exactly where you are. And I know exactly where you are.
Exactly. You are right, man. How are things going with you?
Doing well. Just excited. I mean, you know, all the feels, all the emotions heading into week 1. I've got them all, and I'm not even playing. So who knows, you know, try to put yourself in Carson Wentz's shoes, you know, try to put yourself in DeForest Buckner's shoes or Darius Leonard. These guys are so hyped to get back on the field, play a meaningful football game, get the season started, because it feels like 9 years ago that playoff loss in Buffalo on January 8th or 9th. So there's certainly a lot of anticipation, but a lot of, anxiety too going into the season that, you know, starts off really strong in terms of the schedule, and then injuries are always a part of every season for every team. The Colts have certainly dealt with that in training camp with, foot injuries and guys missing a lot of practice time, and not just any guys. I mean, these are key players, like, you're starting all-pro left guard, or your quarterback, or, your Pro Bowl centers missed a lot of time. And then they had the COVID deal. So, you're looking at the season, if you will, being about 6 weeks old when you factor in the start of training camp, and you haven't even played a regular season game. And there's been a lot of drama. There's been a lot of things to concern yourself with. But that being said, knock on wood, heading into this first game, the team for the most part is intact. And it's certainly to the point where it's been the most intact to this point heading into the regular season. Now, you haven't had a lot of continuity. You missed a lot of practice time with especially a lot of guys on offense, but they're trying to put it together in a short amount of time. And I'm incredibly excited and hopeful to start the season and begin what should be a successful campaign.
Yeah, and then you got to look at the fact that the fans will be back. I just got back from Iowa City last weekend. Kind of sucked going out there to get to watch a loss, but the environment, the people, the fans, it was fun. Just having it, like you said a minute ago, the feels, the smells, all that stuff, it was all there. People were cooking. You smell the grills. It is just a different environment, man. It's night and day.
Well, the most amount of fans the Colts had last year, the largest crowd was, I think, 12,500. And I give those people a lot of credit because they made a lot of noise. And I think they were part of some big wins last year, especially for a lot of teams that came into Lucas Oil. They were used to playing in front of nobody. I look at teams from the NFC North, like Green Bay and Detroit, all of those teams, they had no fans last year. So to have some fans there made a really big difference. But I can't imagine what it's going to be like, at least for me, to look out, I'm 7 stories up, to look at a full stadium, 65,000 people there. It's going to be the first sold-out crowd at Lucas Oil Stadium since 2019 for any event. And I'm just so excited for it because the crowd makes such a difference in terms of the energy, the atmosphere. It makes the broadcast sound way different. You use that to your advantage as a broadcaster. You use that element to display or convey the atmosphere of the game or the intensity of the moment. And so I'm just so excited for that to be back. And to have every seat filled, every section filled with fans making a difference. I know the players are excited. I know the coaches are excited. I think to some degree it's going to be like riding a bike. But also, on the other hand, it's going to be very, very foreign, and I think something that will take a little bit getting used to again, and that's certainly a good thing compared to what we had to deal with last year.
Yeah, speaking of that, I mean, I hate to refer back to the Indiana-Iowa game, but Michael Penix, I'm wondering if some of his struggles had anything to do with the crowd. They had 70,000 people there, and trust me, 69.9 were Iowa fans. That's a loud environment. You talk about the Lucas Oil being a loud environment. It is when you got a full house of fans in there. It changes it changes things. Yeah. So getting back in that environment is going to be different for these guys. Although they're professionals, it's different. But it changes things. It changes being able to call plays and all that.
No, without question. I mean, that first preseason game the Colts had at home against Carolina, there was probably 45, 50,000 people there. And it was loud. And that's because people were just excited to be watching football again live in person, to go to a game, what they had missed out on the year before. A lot of people didn't renew their tickets, and rightfully so. There were a lot of COVID concerns. They deferred their tickets to this year. And so, we went to Minnesota. I mean, we played Minnesota on a Saturday night in the preseason. And that place was bonkers. You had a couple of false start penalties on the Colts. You had a couple of false start penalties on Carolina when they were in here at Lucas Oil Stadium. And people were going nuts because they were just excited to be part of a game day atmosphere. So with that being said, I can't imagine how that's going to transfer on Sunday when it actually matters. And when you have a perennial playoff team in the house with the Seattle Seahawks and an all-time great like Russell Wilson playing quarterback and trying to rattle him and get in his head a little bit. And I talked with Naeem Hines, Colts running back, earlier this week, and I asked him not necessarily about these first 2 games for the Colts because they're at home against Seattle and the Rams, but going on the road to play the Titans in week 3, which might be, take might be out of it. It is indeed the biggest road game all season the Colts will play because it's a division game against the Titans, who you're competing, squarely head to head with to win the AFC South. I have a full stadium on the road at Nissan Stadium in Tennessee, where, again, you had a condensed crowd down there last year, but to have, 65,000 people there screaming at you and disrupting what you want to do at the line of scrimmage on offense while their defense is on the field, that's something that the Colts primarily, for the most part, didn't have to contend with last year. So it is going to be fun to have that element back into the broadcast, back on game day. And I don't think I ever took it for granted before, but I certainly never will now going forward, considering we didn't have it last year, and football just wasn't the same. It was great to have the game. We got the games in. We still played, but it wasn't the same for so many reasons, and the fans probably being, at the top of that list.
How hard is it to call doing play-by-play of an event of that magnitude? How hard is it to manufacture the energy when there are no fans? Because I know that makes a difference. It makes a difference on how you call things, how you feel, how it affects the emotions of things. But how hard was it to manufacture that energy?
Well, it was hard. It was hard. I don't want to overstate it, because at the end of the game, you're at the end of the day, you're calling a football game, right? So how hard can it be? Where this isn't rocket science, but you had to be cognizant of it. And when I talk about play-by-play, one of the things that I allude to is you have to use your voice as an instrument. Your voice has to indicate to the audience without giving the score. If they're just jumping in, if they scan their radio and they hop into your broadcast, they need to know what's going on in the game just by the tone of your voice or the intensity of your voice or your speech pattern or, the attitude that you have within your speech, those kinds of things. And it was hard to implement those at times last year, especially when the Colts were on the road playing in front of no fans. You get down to a 4-minute crunch time game in the fourth quarter when it's a 1-score game either way for the Colts. And you have to have, intensity in your voice, but a lot of times what you have is the crowd to back that up. And, we've all been able to listen to games at times, again, where you're just hopping into the broadcast and right away by listening to the play-by-play guy or the broadcaster, and if it's going good or bad, judging by if it's a home game or a road game. If it's a road game and you hear the crowd in the background roaring, you're like, it must not be going well for the team I'm rooting for, or vice versa at home. If you're hearing the crowd, hey, the Colts must have made a great play right there. And so that was hard to replicate without having that as a soundtrack in the background. But I like to think we did the best we could. The NFL pumped in crowd noise. They had, the different soundtracks with the crowd, with the intensity to sort of match the game. That was really more of a TV thing than a radio thing. But I'm glad that I just don't have to worry about that anymore, because regardless of where we're going to have packed houses this year. And, by default, I think the intensity of your voice or your speech pattern can easily match what's going on in the game, because you're going to have huge crowds and filled stadiums to back that up and to supply the intensity without really having to do much of an inflection on your part.
Yeah, and so once now you get to get past that, which would be fun. We just had Chris Denari on, and I asked him if they were going to be traveling. Are you going to be traveling to the away games?
Yeah, I mean, we're still in the COVID season, and so the protocols from last season are still in place as far as the traveling party goes. And so you're looking at a very, very tight number of people that can travel with the team on the team charter. So the likelihood of us getting on that plane is very, very, very small. So you're looking at traveling to games, on your own or with the crew, flying commercially or driving. I think we're going to get to Tennessee. Really, it all boils down to direct flights. And flying out of Indianapolis, as you know, is not the easiest thing to do because it's not a major hub. It's not like Atlanta or Chicago, LA, New York. There's not a lot of direct flights to some of these places. And so really for us, in terms of what we need, the prerequisites for us are direct flights, both getting there and coming home. And then it's somewhat of a challenge getting home or flying home the next day, as opposed to flying right after the game with the team on the team charter. And so Monday travel throws a monkey wrench into a lot of our plans because, we have shows to do on Monday. You have to start getting ready for the next game. We have a TV show that we have to do. Our sideline reporter is also our TV host, so she's got to be back for things. Our engineers have to be back for their normal Monday through Friday duties. And so it does make it complicated a little bit. We're still looking at the schedule to see if any direct flights open up later on in the season, but it's not looking good as of right now for games played in November and December in terms of direct flights to some of these places like Houston or Jacksonville or Buffalo. Like I said, we'll continue to monitor the situation, but not being on the team plane is really making it tough.
Yeah, I can imagine not being around, and people don't understand. But when you're not in the environment, there are things you just can't see because all they see is what's on the camera, and there's a lot that goes on around where it's just emotional or discussions or things that happen off the camera, or whether it's how a player is carrying himself. There's just so many things that happen off camera that you don't get to see as a fan, but you need to see as a broadcaster. And I think that people may not understand that, but it goes far more. It's not about just being there to see the game. It's being able to see the game so you can actually call all of it.
No, I mean, that's exactly right. Perfect example is, during timeouts when we're broadcasting remotely, what you're susceptible to is the camera feed or the program feed of what they're showing you during a break. Whereas when I'm at the game, I can scan the field. I like to know who's in the game at all times. So I've got my binoculars out. I'm studying the huddle. I'm making sure, everybody's accounted for on the sideline. And I think you bring up a great point. You're looking for demeanor. You're looking for body language. You're looking to make sure no one's hurt on the sideline or being tended to by doctors and trainers. Whereas if I'm just in a studio or a control room, I'm just looking at TV. And, if the TV is doing crowd shots during a break, that's what I'm watching. And I don't get to see who's in the huddle. I don't get to see those things and take a, roll call, if you will, of who's in the game. And another thing that's very, very subtle, but, you have to account for when you're at the game, you have the scoreboard and all of its entities at your disposal at all times, right? And that sounds a little bit stupid to say because, hey, everybody that's watched a game on TV has the little box score, the little bug in the corner that tells you the score, the time, and timeout situation. And yes, that's all true. But what you don't have a lot of times on television is the line of scrimmage. And that's really important for me in terms of how I do play-by-play because I always incorporate the line of scrimmage in my call before and after the play. So if the play starts at the 32-yard line and there's a run down to the 20, I will always look at the scoreboard and see where the line of scrimmage was and incorporate the gain in my call, right? So that's a gain of 12 because the line of scrimmage portion of the scoreboard still has 32 on it. You don't have that on TV. And so a weird way to compensate for that was last year I had somebody come in. And Jimmy, if you go to those department stores back in the day, like if you ever had to return something at a department store and you were in line to return something and they had that digital alarm clock printout,
ticket.
Not like a little ticker. It says now serving.
Yeah.
So we bought one of those and we had somebody punch in the line of scrimmage on that ticker so that I had that at my disposal for the entire game. So just little things like that.
Wow.
You have to really kind of think through. It's like, okay, what am I going to need to do this game remotely? And what am I not going to have at this game remotely that I would have had I been at the stadium? So just little things like that. It was kind of trial and error to figure out how to compensate for, a lot of times being thousands of miles away, calling a game off a TV monitor.
Well, and speaking of the Colts, as we get closer and closer, Carson Wentz, of course, questions around him still be looked back, and the Colts fans, questions for them. How are they going to be? How are they going to start the season? What are you looking at? What are you thinking?
Well, I think from a foot injury standpoint, it seems to be for the most part behind him. He said yesterday there's a little bit of pain left, and that's to be expected, having surgery about a month ago in early August. But he can deal with that pain. He's played through pain a lot in his career, so I think he's going to be able to gut through it. Now it's just about timing. It's about rhythm. And, when it's all said and done here, there's not going to be a whole lot of practice time for Carson Wentz and the first-team offense, especially in practice going up against a first-team defense. This week is all about Seattle, and for the most part, he's going to be going up against a scout team defense or a look defense that's running a brother-in-law version of what Seattle does on that side of the football. So that is something that I'm going to be watching for early in the game, is just timing and rhythm and getting that confidence back after last season, where he led the NFL in interceptions, only played in 12 games, was sacked 50 times. It's looking like you're not going to have your starting left tackle for the future in Eric Fisher in this game. He's still coming off an Achilles injury. So does he have in the back of his mind that he has to compensate for that left side, that left tackle, with Julian Davenport in there? And I think he's going to be able to play well. He's going to be at a very serviceable level, but those are the things that you're just not going to have the answers on until he gets out there and plays against guys like Jamal Adams and Bobby Wagner and Carlos Dunlap. I mean, these are really, really good football players, and they've played at a high level for a long time. And there's a big difference between 7-on-7 at Graham Park and running around and looking pretty good and pretty sharp to 70,000 people week one, and it's live bullets, full tackle, no red jerseys against a Seattle defense that in the last 8 games of the season last year was the best defense in the NFL, giving up only 16 points per game.
Wow. That's a tough way to start the year, but especially with a quarterback that's new. So you got and not only is he new, he's been going through all the different things that he's been dealing with. The team, how's he health wise in your estimation?
Well, I think he's good. I think again, he's turned the corner on that. There's no way he'd be out there in week one if he wasn't healthy, and so that's a testament to him with his his determination to get back. And that we talked a lot at the beginning of this process after his foot surgery. Is a 5 to 12 window, and he's right at 5 weeks. And so the Colts,
which is amazing.
It sure is. And Nelson's the same way. They had basically the same injury, the same surgery done by the same doctor, exactly 1 day apart. And I think both guys are trending towards being out there. And so it's going to be fascinating to see how they acclimate and how they get in the swing of things, considering, again, they've missed basically all of training camp, no preseason games, and only having about a week and a half of practice leading up to when it matters.
Well, we've got week 2 of college football. Indiana's going to be at home. Man, they took it on the chin last week in Iowa City. Iowa just pushed them around, beat them down bad, 36-6. Shocker to me. I was very surprised to see Indiana's offense just not fire.
No, I was the same way. I mean, I watched that game in disbelief. I've never seen anything like the first 3 minutes of a game where you give them really good field position, they mount a drive, you lose contain on a 56-yard touchdown run. And it was by a guy, Reese Taylor's a guy he's a veteran. He's played that position for a long time, and just a bad assignment. Didn't execute. They gave up the sideline, easy touchdown. And then 3 plays later, you got the pick 6. But the play before that was even more concerning, where you drop a shotgun snap, and it was total panic. And you talk about the crowd at Iowa having an impact on the IU offense and Michael Penix. And, you're talking about 19, 20, 21-year-old kids playing in front of 70,000 people for the first time in 2 years. Obviously that's going to have an impact, especially in a season where a lot of people all off season long have been talking about how great Indiana is or going to be. And it's human nature, I think, for these kids to let some of that go to their head. But what was concerning to me as a fan was offensively speaking, Indiana looked very disjointed. It looked like they had a hard time finding their identity offensively. Execution wasn't very good. I thought play calling was a little bit predictable. And then with Penix and his play specifically, listen, it's one game coming off an injury. I get all of that. But what is it gives you a little bit of hesitancy is that, if you go back to last year, and I get that there's 2 different seasons, 2 different games, 2 different sets of circumstances. But the reality is the last time we saw Penix before last Saturday was in Maryland last year, and he didn't look good in that game either. And he got hurt in that game. And he was, I forget whatever it was in the first half of that Maryland game in 2020, he completed like 3 passes. And some of those issues came to fruition in this game against Iowa, where he's not interpreting the defense very well. He's missing open receivers. He's overthrowing guys. He's making bad decisions. And he also looked a little bit confused, or he just had some lack of
fear. I was wondering if it was fearful. Not fearful's not the word, but unsure of himself. And I don't know if it's the injury in the back of his head or what.
I think that's fair. And also, again, you were there. You've got a much better lens on it than I did watching on television. But what I was able to gather was he just looked a little bit confused, and just quarterback intelligence just wasn't there in terms of some of the decision making. And I just want to see him step up and be a leader and show more of emotion on the field in terms of getting this offense in sync. I think that's incumbent on the quarterback, especially for a guy that's played as much football as Penix has, or has been around as long as he has. Let's put it that way, because I know he's been banged up with the injuries. But, it's one game. Everybody has bad outings. Indiana certainly got that out of the way early. Defensively, I was very encouraged. I thought, they gave up 17 points offensively to an Iowa team where, you can win with that number. You should be able to win in the Big Ten with that number, especially with all the talent you have on the offensive side of the ball. So, I'm not off the hype train, but I will tell you, I'll go back to many conversations you and I had in the summertime. A lot of people are talking about 11-1 or 10-2. I never saw that. I never saw that, and that's not a knock on Indiana, because I don't think they can do it. It's more of, have you seen their schedule? Every single year, it's their schedule, and so this could very well be a 7-5 team or an 8-4 team, and people say, "Oh, what happened to the Hoosiers? They took a step back, or they were a one year COVID season wonder." And it's like, no, it's just you don't go from losing to Wisconsin 83-16 to playing in a BCS or a New Year's Six game overnight. It takes time, and I think obviously they've taken a lot of steps, but it's not over. They certainly have, many more layers of the mountain to climb. And I think this year is going to be another stepping stone. And I'm going to be very, very happy if they win a couple of marquee games against Michigan State. I still think Michigan State's a marquee game, given the history of their program. Michigan State, still you need to consistently beat the Marylands and the Rutgers of the world, right? They haven't been there yet. So I'm not completely off the train at all. Certainly with one game, I still think they have everything ahead of them, but I think we need to temper our expectations from the summer, because this schedule is real and it's a gauntlet. And oh, by the way, Cincinnati coming up next week, they're a top 10 team.
Yeah. And talk about the schedule, as you brought up, and you mentioned Michigan State. Man, they look good in week 1. They used the transfer portal like nobody else. I think 9 guys they brought in. So they're looking much better than they were last under Mark D'Antonio. You've got Ohio State, of course, but you've got to travel to Michigan. You've got to travel to Penn State. You've got a Minnesota team coming in as another crossover game that they looked very good against Penn State for 3 quarters. Then you got to go to Purdue for a rivalry road game. And that's not all their games, but that's just the 6 that comes to mind on top of already having played Iowa. So there's right. 7. So there's 60% 60% of your season is against just top level competition.
I mean, listen, the Big Ten is sort of like the NFL. There's no layups, man. There's no layups. There's no gimmies in that league, dude. I mean, Rutgers, when it's all said and done, I think in a couple of weeks when we talk about Big Ten football in the month of October, I'll bet you Rutgers is flirting with a top 25 ranking. I guarantee it. And Maryland's going to be solid. And why did we think Michigan State was going to be bad this year? They had a first-year head coach in a COVID season. Obviously, that's not going to go well. They've got nowhere to go but up, but we're talking about a Michigan State program that's been, a top 25 team in the last 15 years, right? I mean, it works in both ways, right? It goes both ways, where Indiana all of a sudden is not going to be a top 25 program or a perennial contender overnight, just like Michigan and Michigan State aren't going to disappear from those rankings overnight, right? It takes a long time to lose tradition, or in IU's case, gain tradition. So I'm saying Indiana is a very, very good football team, but their schedule is absolutely unreal. And again, those games against Maryland, those games against Rutgers, where you're sort of on equal footing in terms of your program and the trajectory that you're on, man, those are must-win types of games when you're talking about just get to 6-7 wins, get to a bowl and win a bowl. That to me is the next step for Indiana, not get to the college football playoff or a New Year's Six. You need to be realistic about this. And again, that's not a knock on anybody or the program. It's just that's how this works in college football. You need to have building blocks, and you need to take this one rung at a time on the ladder. And one bad loss in Iowa is not going to derail that. I just think this season needs to be looked in a little bit of a different perspective from an IU football standpoint in terms of the history and what this team has given you, or what this program has given you. So that's why I'm still optimistic that you can still get some marquee wins. Listen, anytime you can beat Michigan, anytime you can potentially beat Penn State, that's a great win. That's a great season. So win a couple of those games, get to a bowl, win a bowl game for the first time since the early 90s. That, to me, is where this program needs to go, and that's the benchmark for this 2021 season.
Absolutely. Matt, I appreciate you, brother. Get ready for the season. It kicks off on Sunday, right?
Yes, sir. 1:00.
Cannot wait, brother. Be listening to your call. I'm looking forward to it. Hope you have a great rest of the week. Rest that voice and enjoy it.
Will do, my man. Good to be with you.
Thank you so much, Matt Taylor, joining us from the confines of the Indianapolis. I'm up here in Indianapolis today. Brought to you by the great folks at Sam's Family Restaurants in the Indianapolis area, also down at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Clubhouse. We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Speak. Bozich is going to join us. We may hear from Dustin Schutte. Don't know yet, but we'll find out. We got lots more coming up. Back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're looking for...
All right, so we'll have a fairly short 5-minute segment coming back. So what's a quick topic you want to do?
We'll go over these questions, comments, stuff that Matt just talked about, games that I thought were going to be easier than they potentially might be now. Going to Michigan is going to be tougher than I thought. Not that going to Michigan's never not tough. Michigan's looking better. Michigan State is looking better.
If you don't get Dustin Schutte back from 10 and 10-20, go over the Indiana basketball schedule, since the actual dates are out now.
Yep.
And then you'll have Rick Bozich.
Which I was going to talk. One of the things I was going to talk to him about too. It's the favorable schedule. Gosh, I'm so hungry. Didn't get to do my breakfast this morning.
Oh yeah, didn't have anything at the hotel.
Coffee. Man, that we're required getting up way too early.
Midweek concerts suck.
Tell me about it.
The aftermath of it sucks.
It didn't get over terribly late.
Who else? Who opened for him?
Wolfgang Van Halen's band.
Tremonti?
Whale or Wham or something. Whatever it is.
Oh, He used to be in a band called Tremonti with Mark Tremonti.
Well, he used to be in Van Halen.
Well, yeah. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring this back.
For Honda of Bloomington's got you covered. They're Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. For deals like this, how about a new 2020 Honda Civic LX front-wheel drive lease for just $180 a month? Or a new 2021 Honda Accord LX front-wheel drive lease for just $270 a month. Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back here at this Thursday. Coming to you from the mobile studios, Golf Club at Eagle Point Mobile Studios, Indianapolis. Reading something about the SEC beefing up. They're going to start beefing up their schedule. The SEC has been known to have more cupcakes than a bakery, man. They have 4. They only play 8 conference games, so that gives them 4 non-con games they can play, as opposed to the 3 that are allowed in the Big Ten now, since they went to that 9-game schedule. Wondering, is that going to stay at 9? I think the SEC. I don't know. When Texas and Oklahoma joins that, I don't know how many teams that gives them. Is that 16? Do they already have 14? Does that give them 8 on a side? There's 7 games right there. And that would allow for just 1 crossover game, unless you added another game. Like the Big Ten has 2 crossover games, but then you get into who's playing whom and all of that. But anyway, the story is about the SEC is they're going to start beefing up the schedule. Most teams are going away from the cupcakes, and it's mostly market driven. It's mostly to have better games for better fan participation. But we'll benefit from that. There's no point. I don't personally want to see anybody play, a team that is 2 levels below them. What is the point for a fan? That is not, to me, there is no joy there. That's like going onto a playground and challenging some 10-year-old to a basketball game and just beating the crap out of him. What's the point? That's not fun to watch. I want to watch competitive play, competition. It should be difficult, but and there's the level of competition matters. You can still have a blowout and it still be exciting because of the situation, who it is, but there's not much that's going to make a game against Charleston Southern or whomever exciting. Now, if it's an App State and they're upsetting a Michigan, that's a whole different deal. Or a Troy that's upsetting an LSU, which has happened. That's a different deal. But generally, I not a fan. I know that you need maybe one cupcake to get your season started. I'd be okay with that, and that should be it. You can't schedule all conference games because that doesn't allow you to schedule other teams from other places, which is I enjoy that. I do want to see the other different teams come in. But that's what I believe they've been talking about with this so-called alliance. We've never been, as usual. It's like they talk about something, then it just they don't give you the full details on. Well, what are y'all going to do? Oh, well, they don't know. They just wanted to say something. They just wanted to act like that they were not getting caught flat-footed. But we'll see. Let's see. It was awesome, Glenn. It was awesome. Yes. Well, yeah, IU versus Idaho but it would have been a lot better for Indiana had they played that game before they played Iowa. I can promise you. That's another thing. Starting the season like that, that's tough. But you got to do it. Everyone's going to do it. Chris says the SECs plays each other, which is tough enough. That conference is on another level, and I hate all of them. Yeah, they're definitely – they have more teams that are on a higher level. There's no doubt about that. You saw a Georgia team take down Clemson, Alabama, and we don't – who else is going to be great from the Big Ten this year? The SEC. Hey, we got to take a break. We'll be back. Rick Bozich is going to join us. Hopefully, Justin Schutte will be able to get on as well. But looking forward to talking to Rick. We'll talk about the IU basketball schedule that has been released. No surprises, but I think it's a favorable schedule for Indiana. We'll get back to it after this. Brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, and beer. If you're down in the Clarksville area, right off of I-65, man, it is fantastic. We'll see you on the flip side. Back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans.
It's always so weird taking commercials that close.
Happens.
It does, yeah. And there are some people at iHeart, too, that will take their first 2 segments up to the very last second, and they have a 5-minute final segment, but I don't know. Not a fan of doing it.
Well, it just doesn't always work out. Boy, number 9, Indiana. Did they get beat? Oh, they did. They're 3-1.
3-0, I think, to Creighton. You're talking about soccer.
Yeah, when was that?
I think it was Monday or over the weekend, one of the two.
Really? Damn, they dropped from number 1 to number 9.
Well, when you get whooped like that at home by Creighton, which I'm sure Creighton isn't bad if they won by that much, but
I saw Jerry Yeagley. I was with someone else, and we were talking about who's the football team? Simon Fraser?
Yeah.
That Idaho beat? Remind me of that.
What about him?
I don't want to. Yeah, I'll save it for the show.
Okay. I'm surprised that's allowed to count for their record, even in the FCS.
It didn't used to be. Oh, are they an FCS team or an FBS team?
Yes. They play in I think I heard someone say the Big Sky. They used to be in the Mountain West when they were in the FBS, but they went lower.
Yeah. See, this game must have been scheduled when they were an FBS team.
Well, you would think that, but then they also got the Indiana State Sycamores coming back on the schedule here soon.
Indiana does?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, but those games are scheduled like.
But Indiana State's always been FCS, though. I wish they'd stop.
I think they've changed the rule where it does count and it used to not count.
I wish they could only play FCS teams.
You shouldn't. No FBS team should be playing a freaking FCS team.
If you're going to play a scrimmage, play an FCS team. But if you're going to play something that counts for the schedule, it needs to be not Power 5, but it needs to be FBS. All right, come back.
Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink. This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Happy Thursday. Welcome back. Beautiful, beautiful day outside. Not a cloud in the sky. Enjoying it. Just finished up with Matt Taylor and talking in the break. Indiana playing Idaho this week in football. 7:30 game, man. You get to tailgate all day. Go out and enjoy that. Have a night football game. Idaho beat Simon Fraser last week, which sounds like an attorney. But I was like, who is Simon Fraser? And then I was with a friend yesterday, Brent Hutton, and Jerry Yeagley was there, the former IU soccer coach. And someone said, I think that they played IU in soccer a long time ago. So he goes, well, hold on. Well, Jerry's in there. Let's go in and ask him. So Brent walks in. I walked in with him. He's, hey, coach. He said, do you remember playing Simon Fraser? He said, yeah, I think it was in the 70s. We played him only once. He said, we may have lost to him. And the fact that he was sitting there remembering that match from what had to be 40-something years ago, a known team, that was amazing. Just, oh yeah, just like as that. I can't, if you ask me what I had for breakfast yesterday, I'm going to struggle for 5 or 10 minutes saying, oh, well, give me a second. And bam, he's in the middle of something. Somebody asked him a question. He's like, oh yeah, fired it right out. The mind of greatness. That's a mind of greatness. We were talking about FBS and FCS teams. Football bowl series, football championship series. Basically, Division I, Division II is what that is. That's the old Division II. I don't think FBS teams should play FCS teams, period. I know those FCS teams like the payday, and that's great for them. If you want to allow one in-state or something, so you're benefiting an in-state school, maybe, but I'm not a fan of FBS playing FCS teams. It's like, I mean, it's Division I against Division II. What's the point? Other than you supposedly getting a nice little purchase to win. But it is what it is. It's how it's always been. But things are changing all the way around. And we'll see how that goes. We're going to talk about the Indiana basketball schedule. It came out when Rick Bozich joins us at 10:20. But I think it's favorable to Indiana, personally. The road games that they have to take are not as bad as they don't have to go to Michigan. They don't have to go to Illinois, I think. I'm trying to remember offhand. The non-conference schedule, of course, Eastern Michigan, Northern Illinois, St. John's is part of the Gavitt tip-off games. You got Louisiana Lafayette, Jackson State, Marshall. They're at Syracuse. That's the first road game. So they get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games at home beginning November 9th before they hit the road to go to Syracuse. Then they're back to play Merrimack, Northern Kentucky, and UNC Asheville. Now, basketball takes what football. I just talked about football and cupcakes. There is no bigger server of cupcakes than basketball schedules. And I thought Indiana's had gotten better. But you look at this and it's like, there is Notre Dame on there. That's going away. This is the last year for the Crossroads Classic. Of course, that's not an away game. You've got Northern Kentucky at home and UNC Asheville at home. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Those 11 non-con games, 9 of them are at home. 1 is in Lucas or Bankers Life. and the other one's at Syracuse. So a pretty forgiving schedule for Indiana basketball to start the season. That's great to be able to get off to that kind of. The difference with basketball and football, you don't have time. Basketball, yeah, we've got 9 games against cupcakes. 9. That's a lot of practice, man. There is not a team on here that can beat Indiana of these, minus the Syracuse and the Notre Dame, which I'm not saying that they are. I'm just saying those other ones don't have a chance. So there's no way Indiana is not going to be at the least with 2 losses. I
wouldn't be so sure with some cupcakes. And I know Indiana's had a history of losing to people like Fort Wayne and stuff like that. But just because they play in a conference that's not a Power 5 conference doesn't mean that they can't have good teams in those.
No, it doesn't. But I'm just saying, if Indiana loses to any of those teams, you got issues, man.
I don't think that they'll necessarily lose to these teams, but I wouldn't be surprised if games to UNC, Asheville, NKU, Marshall are all close to some extent.
They're at home. Plus, they're at home.
It's also a head coach. And they're going to have rocky games. I'm not saying they're going to lose those games, but don't be surprised if a few of these quote unquote cupcakes aren't as easy as they seem. That's all I want to say.
And I understand, and I agree with that. That's always that way. There's always somebody that either the team that's supposed to win has a bad game or the other team just has a great game, whatever happens. I'm just saying there is not a team on that schedule that Indiana should have any problems with, period. I don't care because of the talent that they have on that team, the coaching staff that they have. They're going to be in Assembly Hall. They just went down and played a pro team and took 2 games from those guys, which there's not a team on here that could handle BC Mega. And again, I'm not talking about Notre Dame or Syracuse. I'm talking about the non-con games. But so at worst, Indiana should have 2 losses, which I don't even think necessarily that's playing at St. John's. That's going to be tough. I don't know what Syracuse is like, but they're always consistently good, and they play that matchup zone that screws with people. It screws with Indiana back in 2013. I'm sure that Mike Whitson will handle it a lot better, and he won't be trying to institute a brand new offense the day before playing Syracuse, which is what happened back in 2013. And that's a fact. That really happened. Not the day before, but leading up to that game, Crean wanted to change the offense. Story's been relayed to me by someone that would know. Crazy. But yeah, so that's going to be a difficult game, man. You're in the Carrier Dome. Oh, man. The Carrier Dome, they get I think they get 30,000 for a game up there. For an Indiana comes in, that's a big game. That'll be a big crowd. That'll be a tough place to play. You go on the road, that one's going to be tough. Notre Dame, this should be, very competitive. These other ones, nah. But now the conference games, I think Indiana came out on the good. The games that they have to go away and don't have a return game for, Northwestern, Iowa, and Michigan State. Iowa and Michigan State, that's going to be tough there, playing in those 2 places. But the home onlys, Illinois, Michigan, and Rutgers. You get Illinois and Rutgers at home, you don't have to go there. So I think I said this yesterday. If they can go 4-2 with those, that's a win, man. That is a win. Everyone else, they play twice, of course. Where's Purdue? They play on my birthday a lot. No. Purdue, ending the season at Purdue at March 5th. How about that? Indiana has a 9-game losing streak currently to Purdue. I think that ends at home this year. I really do. That happens on January 20th. How far into the conference? So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Purdue is the 8th game of the conference season. So, and they're nearly 20 games into their season by then. Isn't that nuts? That's crazy. They open the season December 4th at home versus Nebraska. So they get a nice little conference opener. Nebraska hasn't really done much. We'll see if they've improved any. But the second game, they've got to travel to Wisconsin. It's been a tough place for Indiana to play here of late, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think the schedule is favorable. Other than it's just a Big Ten schedule. Other than that, because you got to play everybody twice. But the home and aways, it came out in their favor. And Indiana's talking about being a tournament team. I don't see any question that this is a tournament team, and I haven't even really seen them play. But they were damn near a tournament team last year because of the talent that they had. If they would have had they'd have had a different coach, they would have been a tournament team last year. I think that I don't have any doubt. I don't have many doubts that they're going to be an NCAA tournament team this season. Now, how good they are, I don't know that. We've got a long way to go. We've got to see them. We've got to see what they do against conference competition and all that. But I fully expect Indiana. I've said it. I think they're going to be a top 4 team in the conference this year. The Big Ten has lost a little bit, so that should allow them to move up. But Indiana's gained a lot. They've gained talent and they've gained coaching. 2 very important pieces. So we'll see. But I think that it's going to work out for them pretty well. See, I missed the I flipped off the thing, so I was missing all the comments. That's my bad. Forrest late to the party. That's okay. It's because he's in Bloomington. He's probably out playing golf. Chris said, new coach, new system. Good to get started. Not like a seasoned team, yeah. Ross says the schedule will definitely get beefed up in the future. The one is good for this year. Yeah. Chris, at Syracuse, can Woody finally beat the Q's curse? Since 87, the championship, IU has lost all 5 games played between the two sets. That's right. They are 1-5 against Syracuse since winning the championship in 87. But Indiana won the one that mattered, I guess. Right? Hey, let's take a quick break. When we come back, Hall of Famer Rick Bozich joins us. We're back with that from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, mobile in Indianapolis, brought to you by Cheryl Sizemore and Remax Realty. If you're in the Indy area and looking for a place, look up Cheryl Sizemore. Cheryl at theindypros.com. Back with more on Indiana Sports Beat right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're looking for...
Good morning. Hello, Rick. How are you, brother?
I'm good. How are you? You went to Iowa, didn't you?
I went to Iowa. Yeah, it was a great experience. Other than that, it was I had not been to Iowa football games, so I can cross that off my list.
Was it everything was built up to be?
Minus the Indiana team. Minus the Indiana team. Yeah, it was just cool to be out in that environment again, smelling the grills and watching the people. And I love going to those kind of places that I've talked about out in front of the stadium where all the cars, the people are going. There were no cops. They didn't need cops. Everybody was just handling all themselves, and there were no issues. I was like, this is amazing. They don't need anybody running and directing. It was just easily everybody went about their way, and there was 80,000 people are out there. So they know what they're doing. It was fun. But disappointing in Indiana's effort for certain. I still carry this White Sox shirt in my car. I've been carrying it for like 3 weeks because I'm like going, I will see him one of these days. And I'm going to have this damn shirt.
I'm coming to the Cincinnati game.
I'm going to leave it in there till the Cincinnati game.
That's a noon one, right?
Yeah. Yes, it is. 7:30 this week. Night game.
7:30.
Nick
Trying to
Curran
think.
mentioned you the other day, Rick, whenever he was talking about the White Sox on his play-by-play, saying
Oh, really?
Bozich is staying up late watching the White Sox or something like that.
Yes, I did. 2 games in Oakland. They play at 3:07 today.
Are they still in first?
Yeah, they're 11 games ahead.
Oh, God. How long has it been since they've won the division?
2008.
That's a pretty good run.
Been a while. Yeah, been a while. So the Hoosiers going to bounce back? Did it change your view of them?
Yeah, I think their offense just scares me to death.
Is it personnel, or is it Sheridan, or is it Taylor, or is it Penix?
I think it's all three. Matt Taylor was on here, and he was talking about it. He mentioned the play calling he thought was a little predictable. Penix just looked, I don't want to use the word scared, but not confident. He didn't have confidence. I don't know if it was fear. At the same time, he's playing an Iowa team. He hasn't been touched. He's been wearing the blue jersey, red jersey for a year, so he hasn't been touched. Now you got these big old corn-fed Iowa dudes trying to tear your head off.
Right.
All right, here we go. Coming back in.
$270 a month. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sillersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back on this Thursday. It is a beautiful day. I'm coming to you from the Mobile Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios in Indianapolis. After I was at Guns N' Roses last night, Rick. So I just
Where was that? You froze.
stayed over, man. Lucas Oil.
Oh, wow.
Lucas Oil Stadium.
What kind of crowd they have?
But pretty good. If I had to guess, it was probably 40,000.
Oh, wow.
I'm guessing because they closed the end off, so I can't. But yeah, it was pretty fun. Just getting out in that environment, like going to Iowa City was fun in the part of being out and about at a game. But that's where that fun ended. The game wasn't much. The game was over in 3 minutes. I think that was the biggest shocker. Is all this build up for everybody waiting for the season, and I don't care who your team is, or if you're a fan, you're not a fan. Even if you're not a fan, which I was just watching the game, and I'm like, you don't want to watch a game that's over in 3 minutes, and that game was over in like 3 minutes, and it's like, man, they just didn't have the ability to get back offensively.
No, you're right. It was deflating. That's the word I used. The interception followed by the long touchdown run, followed by another interception, and you never really felt like Indiana had the offensive spark to make it a game. The defense, I think, actually played winning football.
Right.
They didn't make any turnover. They didn't create enough turnovers. So Indiana lost their turnover battle, which they consistently won last year. But the offense did nothing. So you can look at really across the board. The offensive line, below average. Penix had the worst day he's probably had at IU. The running game, in part because of Iowa's defense and the offensive line, never really had much of a spark. And Freifogel had a few catches, but not really a ton. And it's too soon after one game to say it was alarming, but it makes you think about whether some things need to be fixed.
Well, the thing that bothers me the most is this is a veteran team. Right. All these guys are veterans. The offensive line, they're veterans. Right. And I hate to pick on him, but was it Caleb Jones or Cam Jones? Again, it's Caleb, I think. 77, three penalties, just critical. 2 procedure penalties, right, and another big penalty. That's 3 just on the same guy who's one of your anchors, if not the anchors on the line. I mean, you can't have that. And to be the first game and me making those many mistakes, I was really surprised at that. The mistakes were just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way you look at it is, if you know the history or the memories of Indiana football, you thought they gotten past the point where they were going to play a team like this and they would get, dominated like that. If I think most people thought they had a chance to win. I think the average person thought they're probably going to go in there and lose, but very few people thought they were going to go in there and get beat like that. And that harkens back to, the way they got beat 10 or 15 years ago. And so you thought the program had outgrown that, but it happened again. And, I've read pretty consistently the comments of Tom Allen. I know he's going to talk again in about 50 minutes. And I think he was just as stunned and disappointed and angry as everybody else was.
I agree. I think that he expected things to get done that did not get done. He's got a new defensive coordinator. Like I said, the defense played fine. I think the few things that they have to fix are just maybe some communication issues with having a new coach and all that. But they gave up like 16 points. And you hold Iowa to 16 points, you got a shot at. You should have a chance to win that game. I don't care where it's being played. But the O-line is really scary because if you can't protect Michael Penix, you can't open holes for Stephen Carr. It's done. What are you going to do? And you've got a line that is veterans, and they're too deep of veterans as well.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure all week this week they've been told how bad they are, and we'll see how they respond. Right? I mean, everybody, if they read social media at all, if they hear anything around campus, I think everybody's been saying how bad they were. And I agree with you. They do have guys that have started for 2 or even 3 years. And I know they have some decent young offensive line prospects, but that's like one position. I think it's the hardest for a freshman to play because they're going against guys usually 3 or 4 years older who have had all that time in the weight room and build their body into men. And the freshmen are really kids in some ways. They're not men yet because they haven't trained with men and they haven't been hit by men in high school. Very few times have they gone against a guy who's even a college level player. So the first time they get on a college field and get knocked on their butt by some dude who, like Iowa, has guys who'll probably be in the NFL, it's probably an eye-opening experience. So it'll be an interesting test. And the one thing that I looked at Indiana during the offseason is they've got a really hard schedule. I mean, they don't have – this is their one game really to sort of regroup and get their confidence back, and they need to win this game on Saturday, and they need to win it pretty impressively because we both know Cincinnati's good, and Western Kentucky had a heck of a performance in their opener, and I know it was against Tennessee Martin, but they still threw 7 touchdown passes, and that guy's got a track record. Bailey Zappi, we'll be talking about him, and that game is down there, and then it's at Penn State. I mean, it's a gauntlet coming up.
Yeah, it's crazy, their schedule. And it seems like it has gotten harder since that loss or since week 1. Michigan State looked good. They really came back. I'm like, wow. So Michigan looked good. It's going to be
Maryland they came back and beat West Virginia, right? Rutgers beat Temple.
I mean, and Temple has been playing some good football the last couple of years. Greg Schiano is doing great with recruiting classes. Had a great recruiting class. So there are just like Matt Taylor said earlier, there are no layups in the Big Ten.
No, there's no gimmies.
None. And it's amazing how tough this schedule has gotten since week 1, but you got to move on. They are playing Idaho. They're playing Petrino, Bobby Petrino's brother. Paul, you were very familiar with Bobby, obviously covered him for a long, long time. They coached together some along the way, right? Way back in the day.
Yeah, in the first era of Petrino, he was like a receivers coach for a while, and then he was the offensive coordinator. But he was a receivers coach for a while. He's an offensive guy, just like his brother, just like his dad. They grew up in that part of the country. I think they're from Montana. So Paul, I think when Bobby went to the Falcons, Paul didn't go with him. He went somewhere else. He was at Illinois briefly. He's bounced around, but he's been at Idaho for a while now. He's had a chance. When he took over, it was a horrible program. I don't really know that much about him. Didn't they play a spring schedule? I think they did.
I know they played Simon Fraser to open.
They beat some team I never heard of, 68-0 the other day.
Simon Fraser. I thought it was an attorney.
Or a comedian or something. I don't know. So it's going to be, they're going to pass the ball a lot. I think I read they play 2 quarterbacks. One's a runner and one's a passer. So it'll be to me, all eyes will be on the offense. They've got to show that the passing game is improved. They've got to eliminate the interceptions, and they got to run the ball. The running game thing has been going on here for a while. I mean, last year they were 13th in the Big Ten. 3.1 yards per carry. And I think people thought the offensive line, because 4 starters came back, they'd get better. And as good as Stevie Scott was, he was a power runner, but he didn't really have that burst. And I think people thought maybe this year Stephen Carr would have more of a burst. And he did look like he had a bit more of a burst, but he doesn't have the power of Stevie Scott. So they're going to have to create some openings for him. And I was surprised we didn't see Baldwin more either.
Yeah, and I think at halftime he probably should have lifted Penix or shortly thereafter before he did, not because that he's not the starter, but you could just tell this is not his day. It's not going well. And Jack Tuttle had played more recently than Michael Penix had. He's been getting snaps, so he's up to speed, and they still were within earshot of the game, I think, or maybe not by that point. But I would like to have seen Tuttle in just to see him play a little bit more than mop-up minutes, because there may end up being a quarterback situation in Indiana, and I can't believe I'm saying that. I never would have dreamed of saying that, but I don't know. Coming back from 2 ACL injuries, it's not done very often, especially by a quarterback.
Yeah, I've talked to some people say, you've got to be totally confident in your mind that you feel safe and secure on your leg and that you're not concerned about getting hit. And that's got to be tough to do. If you've been through 2 of those, you felt the pain, you've known the challenge of the rehab. We're not there. We don't see practice. We don't know how comfortable he was or wasn't, but he did look a little bit uncomfortable. And the one thing that he took off and run once, maybe twice.
But the one time, and I tweeted out, is when he threw an interception.
Okay.
He had at the last second decides I'm going to try to throw this ball instead, and the receiver was already turned around the block, I think, and that was the moment that I'm like, man, he really does not have confidence in himself, because he could have taken off and slid, but he didn't have that confidence.
And maybe they told him not to run. You don't know.
Probably.
I mean, they probably told him.
They probably beat it into his head.
I'm sure they told him all fall not to run. And because on the play that he got hurt against Maryland, he didn't really even get hit.
Stepped out of bounds. He just stepped out of bounds.
Right.
But I don't know how you can have a quarterback that you're telling, don't run, man, don't run. It's just I don't know that you can succeed that way.
I agree. And he wasn't, it's not like he was a Lamar Jackson or even a Peyton Ramsey in terms of his running, but he was a threat. I mean, he was good enough to get some yardage, but passing is his game. He's a drop back passer. That's what his game is. So he just needs to, this is the week, man. You're playing a team that you're at home, should be a pretty large crowd. I know the Cincinnati game is sold out. This one's not quite sold out yet. Is that correct?
Yes.
But, it should be everything's in your favor to sort of turn it around and get it going. So this is an important game for Indiana.
Well, not only that, and mentally for them, but from the fan standpoint, they have to win, because they've got all this momentum. The Cincinnati game sold out, like you mentioned. If they win that game, they will continue and carry that momentum on with the fans and the team. They lose that game, they probably stand a good chance of losing a chunk of fans.
Lose the Cincinnati game?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible. I'm trying to think, what's the next home game? The next home game after that isn't Ohio State, is it?
That's like the 6th game
Michigan
of the year.
State.
I think Michigan State, yeah.
I think it's Michigan State and then Ohio State. Michigan State's after Penn State. Yeah, I mean, hopefully a lot of people for them have bought a bunch of season tickets and they're committed to coming and the weather's good and have a good time. But, yeah, I mean, when you have a fan base that you're still trying to build, you're still trying to, get them to believe the success of the last 2 seasons is sustainable and something you can even improve upon, you've got to give them evidence.
We'll certainly find out on Saturday night under the lights at Memorial Stadium. Indiana's basketball schedule out. No surprises there, of course, but their non-conference schedule, pretty easy. The only 2 marks on there, they have to travel to Syracuse for the ACC Big Ten Challenge, and before that, they'll go to St. John's. Or no, they're at home against St. John's.
St. John's game's in Bloomington, right in the Notre Dame and Indy, so you got 3 games.
Yeah,
that's good and bad. I mean, it's it's fewer chances to lose, I guess, but it's fewer chances to score credibility points with the NCAA tournament selection committee, because the other teams they're basically playing. I haven't looked at the projected forecast for the Mid-American Conference or the Horizon League or some of these conferences that the teams they're playing are in, but I don't think you're going to get a bunch of points for some of the other non-conference games.
No, I was just talking about that earlier. This schedule looks just really particularly weak. I thought that they had gotten away from that, but obviously they haven't.
It's also interesting they're not playing any exhibition games too. I thought that was interesting. I think they're playing 1 or 2 secret scrimmages.
I guess the BC Mega Bahamas trip, I guess, took care of part of that.
Is that why it is?
I guess so. I don't know.
Could
but
be.
For the conference side of things, I think they came out on the good side. They only have to play Illinois and Michigan at home. They have to travel to Iowa and Michigan State, but getting those 2 teams at home only, that's a win for Indiana, I think. Michigan and Illinois.
It's set up. I think they've got the easier games are in the front half of the schedule. It's kind of front loaded for success. It's harder down the stretch. They open with Nebraska at home.
Yes, sir.
Correct? Nebraska will be better this year, I think. Year 3 for Hoiberg, and then they go to Wisconsin. Mike Woodson goes to Madison and wins. He's going to get a statue, man, because who's the one up there? Is it Knight? Did Davis win there or Knight? It might be Knight.
Knight won there. Because Todd would laugh like he can't believe that they can't beat Wisconsin anymore. So we used to beat them like a drum, and it's flip flopped.
I mean, there was one stretch I think they won over 30 in a row against them.
31 straight games. I think.
Right. I think they've only won one time in the Kohl Center ever. I think that's correct. Green never did. Archie never did. Maybe Sampson did. I don't know, but it might have been Davis, or it could have been Knight. I mean, and they got Davidson back, and then a bunch of young guys. I think. I mean, this is the year you got to beat Wisconsin. And then they come home and they had like Minnesota and Ohio State at home. I think that's what it is. I mean,
Minnesota. And they have to travel to Iowa, travel to Nebraska. Okay. Yeah, Ohio State's at home. Then they have to travel to Penn State. Then we got Minnesota at home. Then they're back on the road to Iowa, Nebraska. Then they got Purdue, Michigan, and Penn State, a 3-game set at home. Purdue, of course, they've lost 9 straight to the Boilermakers. I think Indiana can cut that streak this year at home. Of course, I'll know more when we get to see them actually play, but that streak's got to end at some point, man. I know Purdue has got a really good team, but they could have beat them last year. And they Indiana has the talent, and now they have the coaching. It just has to be put together.
Well, I think this is one place where the coaching will come in, because Woodson will approach Purdue with a different amount of passion than Archie. I mean, he just has to, because he's a former IU player. He knows what it means. Dane Fife being a former IU player, he knows what it means. I'm not sure the previous staff really grasped the whole thing. I really don't think they did grasp the whole thing of how important it was to win that game.
I don't know that they grasped the importance of winning, period, at Indiana. Personally, but
I set you up for that one.
Thank you very much. Hit that.
I noticed Archie quit following me on Twitter. So
did he? Yeah. I'm surprised he still has Twitter. Then
maybe he doesn't. I don't know. I don't know. I hadn't looked to see when the last time was he tweeted. But when I was going through some of my Twitter followers the other night, I noticed he wasn't following me anymore. So I guess I'm out of the will.
Oh, that's funny. That's terrible, because he's got a pretty good one. He'll have a pretty good will to leave, man. $28 million fact away. So
where is he? In Tucson or Phoenix? Where is he?
Man, I haven't even seen or bothered. Is that where Sean is? Is Sean still out there? Are they just hanging out together, spending their millions?
Yeah, Sean's in Tucson. Someone told me he's in Arizona. I would think he would probably be where his brother is, but Phoenix is a nicer place to live than Tucson, in my opinion. So
yeah, they're just kicking back, saying, "You believe we got away with this, man? This is awesome."
We'll see if he gets back in after a year or not. But did you go to Bahamas?
I did not. I sent someone down for that. I wished I would have got to go down, but I didn't have my passport back in time. I couldn't get my daggone passport in time. is the reason I didn't go.
I look at the Big Ten, and, Purdue and Michigan are probably the two best teams, be my guess. And then after that, you got Illinois is going to be good, but I think people underestimate how good Iowa was. And they also lost the kid that went to LSU. What was his name? Miller?
Frederick?
Adam Miller?
Then I was thinking of CJ Frederick.
Corbello back, but they have another guy.
You're talking about Illinois.
Left-hander. He transferred to LSU. They lost the big European guy. He went and played pro. So, they lost some decent dudes. Michigan State's going to be good, but I don't think they're going to be great. And who else? People are talking up Maryland.
I was going to say Maryland.
They got some transfers. They got the kid, I think, from Georgetown, maybe, that they got in. They got Fats Russell, I think, from Rhode Island. And then there's one other team that I think people are putting ahead of Indiana. But other than that, Minnesota's bad. Penn State, bad. Rutgers, I know they got back Harper and Young, but they lost the big guy, and they lost they don't have Young back. They have Geo Baker. They lost Young. So Rutgers should be beatable. Indiana should be 6th, 7th in the league, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where I was not Athlon, but Lindy's or somebody picked them to finish and the other day. I think that they could potentially end up being a top 4 team behind Michigan, Purdue, Illinois, because I don't know who's next. Those 3 are I agree with you. Those are probably the top 3. And then I don't know. We'll see how the season goes, but it should be a good one.
Ohio State is the team we're forgetting. A lot of people are high on Ohio State because E.J. Liddell came back, but they did lose. They lost the one guard. He went pro Walker. Was that his name?
I think it was. Yep, sir. What's coming up next for you at WDRB.com?
Going to Lexington Saturday. Kentucky.
Who are they playing?
Missouri. They got a conference game. I think they're favored by 5. Missouri won its opener. Kentucky's actually positioned to get off to a pretty hot start. If they can beat Missouri, they've got Chattanooga next week. That's a win. They've got at South Carolina the next week. South Carolina's not very good, and then they'd be 4-0 and coming home and playing Florida. So, it's interesting. Kentucky played a team that had lost 10 or 11 in a row and beat them 45-10, and and playing at home. It's a different approach than the way that Indiana and the way Louisville did it. They both played good teams away from home and experienced the downside of that. Losing bad, and people right off the bat are questioning, what they thought about the team. Whereas Kentucky played a schedule to win, paid this team $1.5 million to come up and take their loss. And I look at Kentucky's schedule in the non-conference. They got 4 games, so they got 1 fewer conference game. They had Monroe, which had lost 11 in a row. They got Chattanooga, which is an FCS team. And they got New Mexico State, which I think won 1 or 2 games last year. Bad. They got the worst non-conference schedule in the country, in my opinion. And their other game is Louisville, who they've dominated recently. So they pretty much have 4 guaranteed wins on their record. And Vanderbilt's bad. They lost at home to East Tennessee State. South Carolina has a first-year coach. Tennessee has a first-year coach. Stoops.
There's bowl eligibility. Huh? You've already covered bowl eligibility.
Yeah, Stoops has the second most seniority in the SEC behind Nick Saban. This is the time that Kentucky needs to, if they're going to make a move in the SEC, now is the time.
Yeah, and now you've got the SEC having added Texas and Oklahoma. And I was reading something by the AP this morning that one of the things the SEC is trying to do is beef up the schedule. And they said there are a few teams that have not jumped on that train. Right. Obviously, Kentucky must be one of those teams. Right. Because it's a market-driven thing. Kentucky probably doesn't need that as much. I don't know, but I think league-wide they're going to be forced to start scheduling better, but maybe not. I don't know how the SEC, but they usually it's kind of everybody does the same thing.
I think they'll be forced to go to 9 league games. If you're going to bring 2 more teams in the league, I think you're going to be forced to go to 9 league games because you're going to have then 8 teams in each division if you go that way. So that's 7 games right there in your division, and then you play 2 other teams Otherwise, the teams in the other division, you'd only play them once every 8 or 9 years, and that's not really much of being in the same conference. And Saban is in favor of it, and if Saban's in favor of it, it has a better chance of being passed than it does if Shane Beamer or Mark Stoops or Clark Lee or one of those dudes is in favor of it.
Well, that's the thing that Pat Fitzgerald or James Franklin from Penn State just talked about for 2 years in a row at Big Ten Media Days. Everybody has to get on the same page conference-wise, and he's right. You can't have the Big Ten playing 9, the SEC playing 8. It has to be the same,
right?
I think, and it's just not. And why you would not play 9 conference games in a conference as large as those with those teams, it's ridiculous to me. I mean, we know why. It's the money games. They want to purchase the wins, and as they have done for so many years, all teams have done that. But I think that has passed, and so it's time to start loading up. And I think college football fans are going to benefit from that, getting to see a lot more better games.
Right, and you look at the Indiana's got 9 conference games, and one of their non-conference games is a top 10 team, Cincinnati. Now they didn't know that when they scheduled it, but that's just the way it is. And then one other game is you're playing a Western Kentucky on the road. And that's a kind of game. If you win, well, you're supposed to. They beat Western Kentucky, shrug. But if you lose, then that's a bad loss to have on your resume. So it's really there's not much to be gained by playing that game. I understand why they scheduled it, I guess, because at the time it was scheduled, they were able to get 2 for 1 or 3 for 1 or whatever it is. But once you get your program to a certain point, you don't need to be going on the road and playing teams like Western Kentucky on the road.
No,
you don't gain anything from it.
Cannot believe. Yeah, I still can't. When I saw that, I was like, "What?" But yeah, it is what it is. But that could be, and that could come at a bad time because we've had all this hype for Indiana. Now they haven't started well, and then right 2 games in there, or third game in, whatever it is, 4th game, I guess.
It's between Cincinnati and Penn State.
So that is another thing. It's kind of normally you play those non-conference games and you go into conference play, and now that's kind of been changed as well. You're in and
Western
out.
has the week off before they play Indiana.
Oh man,
Western plays at Army this week, which is an interesting game. This 9/11 is Saturday, and they're going up to play at Army on 9/11, which would be kind of cool. I've been to Army; it's my favorite place to see a college football game. It's fantastic.
I bet.
And they're playing up there, which will be a great contrast in style because Western's throwing the ball on almost every play, and Army likes to run the ball. I'll be interested to see how that game goes. But then Western comes home and has an entire extra week to prepare for Indiana. So that game is when I saw that on the schedule, I thought, man, that was bad scheduling.
Yeah, and it's so funny. You think about Western Kentucky. Bobby Petrino used to coach there. His brother Paul coaching at Idaho, and as Jeff Brom, who's at Purdue, used to coach
Willie
there. Who's
Taggart.
at Purdue. It's like, man, they have had some really good coaches.
Jack Harbaugh, yeah.
Oh, forgot about that one, man. You got to go, way back. And then basketball, you had Clem Haskins. Western's had some coaches along the way. It's been a good stop. But what else is up for you personally, man? You got your White Sox are in first place. I know you got to be happy as can be.
I'm relatively happy. They got a lot of injuries, but still got 3.5 weeks to go to the playoffs. So they're up by 11 games. They should be able to make it.
Will you go to any games if they make the playoffs?
I might try and go if they get in the postseason. It depends if I can get a ticket. I can't get a credential, but I should be able to get a ticket and go up to a game. No, my dog's mad about something.
Well, he said, "Are you taking me?" Because he must be a White Sox fan as well. It's probably time for his daily walk. I know he gets to go out on his daily walk.
We already got back from the walk, so
man, you're up and at it today.
Probably a delivery person, if I had to guess.
Well, brother, I'll let you go get to it. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. It's always fun.
All right, anytime, Jim. Good
we'll see you at Cincinnati game. I'll have that shirt for you.
All right, I'll see you then. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. The great Rick Bozich, Hall of Famer, joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, mobile in Indianapolis today. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans.
All right. Got one more short 9-minute segment coming up.
Oh, yeah, baby. I got to eat lunch, man. What a beautiful day. Too bad you can't see my backdrop.
I know. I was curious what your view looked like. Let me take a wide screen. Oh, nice. That's awesome.
But I was worried it would be too bright. Yeah, see, you wouldn't be able to see me. That's why.
Only the sun came in the other direction. But it's nice, though. That's a great view.
No one laying out by the pool, unfortunately.
Is the pool even open?
I guess. Yeah. There's no cover on it. I will not be using it. How much time I have?
Minute 20.
Well, I had that in my head for.
Was it the on a feeling? Is that what that was?
No, that was the Florida State.
Like you were doing the beginning of Hooked on a Feeling.
No. No, I just don't know why that jumped in my head, but it did.
All right, here we go.
Of craft beers and all of the right booze to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink. This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios mobile unit in Indianapolis today. Just finished up with Rick Bozich. Always awesome. Looking at some of these comments, Ross, where did I just lost it? No. Where is? Someone was asking about playing. Like to see UK back on the basketball and football as Ross schedules. And yeah, you're right. That'll happen. Someone also said that'll probably happen on basketball, but not in football. That's exactly right. They will never play in football again on scheduled. I couldn't imagine unless it's in a bowl game, and it would more than likely have to be like the Music City Bowl, which they almost played Kentucky in the Gator Bowl, which would have been awesome. But Tennessee stepped on it and was able to get that position for themselves instead. But yeah, you're right. It's not going to happen. It shouldn't, because that's not – they won't be scheduling an SEC team. You know, they got talk of the alliance with the ACC and the Pac-12, whatever that is. It's going to be hard scheduling-wise, period, though, because these games are scheduled so far out. But I would be happy to see the SEC go to 9 games. That puts everybody on even ground. When they do that, that probably will not change until Texas and Oklahoma join that league, which they don't know when that's going to be yet. They know when it's scheduled to be. I think the Texas and Oklahoma were really hoping that the Big 12 would fold and they would have to pay the $1 million buyout. That's not going to be the case. So it may be until 2025 till that happens. But I don't see how it not be anyway because of, again, of scheduling. That's a lot of games that are going to have to be canceled that Texas and Oklahoma have scheduled out right now. But, of course, they're mostly with Big 12 teams. But they still have a lot of other non-con games I guess they could keep. That's not a big deal. But a lot of scheduling. Then you've got the SEC teams that you've got to reschedule. So everything is going to be – you're adding 2 teams to a league in football, and that's going to make scheduling difficult, no doubt, as that goes into the future. But it'll be interesting to see. Let's see. Let's see if we missed. I didn't miss any. Make sure I didn't miss any comments while I was on there with Rick. Anything that else, John, that I want to make sure I didn't miss?
We have a lot of comments from Chris Ayers. I don't know where you're at in the comment section right now. Talking
Forrest said if Indiana doesn't beat Cincinnati, they will lucky to be get bowl eligible. Huge difference between being 2-1 and 1-2 with the remaining schedule. That is a fact. Forrest is dead on with that. Because we talked about that earlier. The schedule it just got tougher after week 1 for me in my eyes. Not just because of Indiana's play, but because of the play of other teams like Michigan State. I didn't expect Michigan State to be that good yet. They are. They look good. Michigan looked good. They looked a lot better. Of course, they're beating nobodies. They weren't playing in Iowa, but they executed. They still executed. Indiana just did not execute on all. I mean, just did not execute. And you can't excuse that. I don't care who you're playing. That has nothing to do with you doing your job. Now, someone else can impede that. Well, not of course, but I don't think it was that. As they just there were way, way, way too many mistakes, and that's not acceptable. And you can't do that. And those are the kind of things we were talking with Rick Bozich about that game in Bowling Green against Western Kentucky coming up, that non-con road game, which is a horrible, horrible, horrible deal. You don't see Power 5 teams go on the road to play small teams like that. Those are what's called trap games. But I was watching something and someone mentioned, a national person mentioned that they thought that this could potentially be a problem game for Indiana. And I'm like, this dude is out of his mind. Well, that's because they see Indiana as the old Indiana. Well, what we saw last Saturday was the old Indiana. It's kind of what I was thinking when I was sitting in the press box watching that game. I'm like, man, I have seen this before, but it's been a while. It just looked lethargic. And hopefully it's a one-time thing. I can't imagine. I was surprised that they made the mistakes they did, but I guarantee you Tom Allen has been not just in the players' butts this week, coaches, everything. I guarantee you he has been on it. Looking forward to the night game aspect of it. The tailgate, that people get to go out and tailgate. It'll be cool to see all there. At least there's a lot of excitement, and a night game. Tailgating is starting. Some people are starting at like at 1 PM. It'll be a great. It didn't have that many night games. You got a lot of noon games, and that does not allow for a lot of tailgating. Indiana has not had a lot of success in football, so they don't have a tailgating history. They don't have. It's not like it is a lot of other places. So hopefully it'll be a fun time for people. They can get out, and if they win and it's a fun environment, they'll come back. You do have games that will bring them back. It sure is nicer to have those 3:30 games at least, where the fans can get out and do some tailgating. Man, a 12 o'clock game, there's virtually no tailgating. I mean, you got to get out and get early. 9 o'clock, get up at 8 o'clock. People that have to drive in. Those games are very difficult. Hopefully they'll end up with more 3:30 games, but we'll see how that goes. Did I miss anything there, John Boy?
Nope. I think we're ready to look forward to tomorrow. We got a pretty loaded schedule for Friday.
We do. Let them know who we got on.
We got Kevin Brockway returning. He wasn't here on Tuesday, so we're having him on this Friday instead. We're going to have our normal recruiting update with Alec Lasley. We'll have Zach Osterman joining us from the Indy Star. And I do believe we have Jim Reamer as well. I'm not 100% sure about him. And then I don't know if we have an Idaho person coming on or not. I know you were working on that.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. And then, well, we need to see about getting Dustin on to talk about this game.
That's true. Maybe Dustin Schutte will return tomorrow if he's able.
So we'll reach out to him. But, man, I can't thank everybody enough, as always. Without you guys, we've got no reason to be here and nothing for us to do. But you guys are great as always. We appreciate your comments and being on with us. Big thanks to Hall of Famer Rick Bozich, Chris Denari, and Matt Taylor, our weekly guests always with us. John, the producer, of course. But again, big thanks to you guys. Without you, there's no reason for us to be here. Have a great day. Go out and do something nice for somebody. But until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.